UConn and the other top 5 teams in the AP poll will remain unmoved till the NCAA tournament.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everyone. You are on Locked On Women's Basketball, your team every day. My name is Kalia Butler, the sideline reporter for the Chicago Sky, and thanks for being an everydayer and making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. As always, I'm joined with Sophia Jones, the radio analyst for the Golden State Valkyries. Sophia, what should we be on the lookout for today?
The 11th hour is quickly approaching in multiple leagues.
Ooh, that's so ominous. I like that one. Sophia is getting good with these every single day. Taking a look at the roadmap we have here for you. Should UConn move conferences? I know that is a topic of debate for many. A little bit more information in regards to CBA and the WNBA. There's a new deadline being set for March 10th. And could the players go on a strike if there is not a new agreement being reached? But first, we're going to get into the top 25 within the AP polls, because this is the last couple of weeks we have to see these rankings right now until we reach March Madness and all that good fun stuff. But of course, UConn remains #1. They are always the unanimous #1 vote, 31 total votes in the AP poll. But some news with it as well. Geno Auriemma broke a tie with Tara Vanderveer, the former Stanford coach, for the most appearances by a coach in the AP Women's Top 25, which happened yesterday. Again, #1 unanimous vote. They have obviously been on a roll. We don't even have to harp on it too much. We just know exactly what they look like. When we're looking at the other teams within the top 5, UCLA sitting at #2. They just came off of their first outright conference win during regular season. And then #3, South Carolina, #4, Texas, and #5, Vanderbilt, who is also on a roll themselves when we're looking at Michaela Blakes and the freshman Aubrey Galvin. What does this mean to have these top 5 kind of seem cemented at this point, and what they're going to look like when we get into seeding and everything for tournament time?
When you're looking at some of that seeding, they choose the top 4 teams to represent each quadrant in the NCAA tournament. And I can't see the top 4 changing either the teams or the order that it is currently in. UConn, UCLA, South Carolina, Texas, they've all been pretty reliable throughout the course of their individual seasons, and they have cemented themselves as those top 4. When you're looking at the next, even 2 teams, Vanderbilt and LSU, they've consistently been in that range as well. But what I'm looking at specifically is 3 through 7 are all SEC teams. And depending on what could happen in this SEC tournament, you could see some shifts there. But with the way that South Carolina is looking, I think right now they have to be that top seed. But just overall, because that group right there is so bunched together and some of them might go head to head very soon, we could see some shifts there.
I think that's a hard one too, because when we're looking at the remainder of SEC play, obviously just a couple games left, but what you mentioned, the SEC tournament, that's going to maybe come as a surprise to some. And I think the ones that are standing out to me most are maybe that switch off between a Vanderbilt and an LSU. Vanderbilt has shown that they can beat some very elite teams and kind of sneak up on you. They are 15-0 at home this season. They've only lost, I believe, 2 conference games. They're 25-3 overall on the season, but they are currently holding the longest single season home winning streak in their program history, having one of the best seasons that this program has ever had, behind Michaela Blakes and Aubrey Galvin, who have been on a roll. They just beat 16th ranked Kentucky. I think they have a lot of momentum going into tournament time. Their last win ties Vanderbilt with number 4, Texas for second place in the SEC right now. And then when we're just taking a look at LSU, who has been on a roll themselves, it seems like they've been able to click when needed most. And when you're looking at Malaysia Fulwiley, Johnson, Williams, they have a pretty elite trio that's been able to figure out not only the defensive side, but the offensive side of things. And we talk about time and time again, you want to be playing your best basketball in March. I think those teams are going to be kind of a standout away from South Carolina, away from a Texas, who's going to come in and be those number 2, number 3 spots.
Yes, because again, once we start getting into a lot of the seeding and bracketology for March Madness specifically, if I'm a team, I don't want to end up in UConn's conference. And the higher up, or quadrant, I should say, the higher up that you can get, then the more of a chance or an easier path to the Final Four you get. And so I think that's going to be on everyone's mind, all these teams. But specifically for those SEC teams that you mentioned, got to be playing your best basketball during March. And a lot of these teams are looking strong and have only really improved since matching up against one another.
Yeah, what some of these matchups looked like at the beginning of the season, if they went and played again now, I think some could be completely different results than we maybe would have thought or we have seen. But when we're looking at some other teams and maybe some surprising teams that are not within the rankings, I think one that stands out most has to be an Iowa State, who was elite to begin the season, were undefeated for quite some time, and then they had started to lose a couple of conference games, and we haven't seen them come back into the top 25 for multiple weeks now. They're kind of towards the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to Big 12 rankings, but at the end of the day, do you think that they can still, if they can make a push in the Big 12 tournament right now, do you think they still have a good chance of, making the NCAA tournament, having a solid seeding in it, or do you think they could be one of those bubble teams? Because I think no matter what, people want to see Audie Crooks playing basketball.
They do. I was watching that matchup that they just played against TCU. They were in control the majority of the game. TCU and Olivia Miles specifically just had an outstanding fourth quarter. Audie Crooks fouled out in the last minute, which didn't help. But that game was played at TCU, where the Horned Frogs are undefeated this season. When you take some of those teams and you put these competitions or competitors on a neutral site, things could get a little bit shifted and skewed, and that's where Iowa State could thrive. You look at the slide that they have, it was because of injuries and certain players being out. Those players are back, and they've looked strong since having the group back together.
We spoke about this a little bit too, and we're looking at teams that have kind of dropped in and out of the top 25 and are now in the others receiving votes column. A couple that stand out: Tennessee, who has lost a good string of games right now, dropped out of the top 25. USC out of the top 25, obviously just mentioned in Iowa State. You have Washington and NC State and Notre Dame. Who stands out to you most of maybe trying to have a final push to get into the top 25 within the next week or so with just 2 games left, or just a team that stands out to you most when maybe you're a little bit concerned for them going into the tournament?
Iowa State, one of the teams I definitely still have an eye on that I think could continue to rise and make some moves. I would throw in Tennessee. They've been on this recent losing streak, but it has been a gauntlet that they have gone through. So have to consider some of that strength of schedule. And we've seen what Tennessee's high can be, and it can compete at an extremely good level. So the recent games that Tennessee has lost during this losing streak, They lost to Texas by only 2 points, lost to Mississippi, lost to Texas A&M, lost to Oklahoma. Then you got to go play LSU on Thursday and then Vanderbilt on Sunday. So it's not going to get any easier. But because these teams are better, or they have a higher ranking than Tennessee, that also gives them the opportunity to rise and climb more because they have shown themselves to compete with these high-level opponents.
Yeah, they've kept it close in these losses. It hasn't been a blowout. But what you just mentioned, I mean, when you're just looking at the rankings of these teams, and prior to their loss to Texas, they played Mizzou, won, and then right before that, they had just lost to South Carolina. The back end of their schedule, when teams are getting tired, it's been a long season, and you have to go up and face LSU now, still have to face Vanderbilt. You just played Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Texas. It's a lot. It's a lot for anybody to take on, but I think you're exactly right. This could be a chance for them to kind of boost their ranking a little bit because they are going up against top 10 teams within the ranking, but also elite teams within the SEC. So we will see what that will look like. I think the SEC conference seedings are going to be maybe some of the most interesting out of all of the conferences, but I digress. Stay with us coming up after this because there is a high potential that there could be a WNBA lockout. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed, sponsored jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. Skills, experience, location, so you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates because that's the most important part, being able to have those one-on-one conversations and get to the nitty-gritty of things. But interview candidates who check all your boxes, less stress, less time, and more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. The WNBA has set a new CBA deadline for March 10th to not impact the 2026 schedule. We're talking about, obviously, NCAA tournament time too, looking at what players are going to declare for the WNBA draft as well coming out of the season. So March is going to be a very important month for many reasons. But I think in kind of separate from this, but also brings these two things together, the CBA deadline has been extended. We talked about them being in that kind of status quo period, but there was more information that came out because the biggest part of all of this has been the revenue sharing. Well, there has been news reported that the WNBA hit their revenue benchmark in 2025. They reached the required revenue threshold of $8 million. So all 13 WNBA teams will receive a total of $8 million to be dispersed among players. I think this information comes out at an important time because, the league is saying that they are going to be losing money if they're allowing players to have too much revenue share. Some are saying that maybe they didn't hit the quota, but it looks like they did. And given that there are more teams being added, it seems like there's just more opportunity for more money to be surmounted on top of what is already happening. So, Sophia, in your opinion, what does this look like in terms of extending the deadline, but also seeing that they did reach their benchmark in 2025?
Brianna Turner, the WNBPA treasurer, said it really well. She said, "This shows our value and how we're fighting for what makes sense and how we should keep fighting," in response to seeing that the WNBA did hit that revenue benchmark, and some of these players will get those dividends. And I agree with her, because when you're looking at the main claim as to why the league isn't accepting the salary structure system that the players are proposing, is because they think the league is going to lose money. Well, after looking at this year and seeing the numbers, it increased. And you look at the trajectory of the league, I think that it will only continue to grow, and that money can only continue to grow. You're even bringing in extra teams now that's generating even more revenue. And this deadline of March 10th is to not impact the 2026 schedule. The league said still have the expansion draft for the Portland Fire, for the Toronto Tempo, the rookie draft, which is scheduled for April 13th right now. Training camp slated on April 19th, regular season on May 8th. So I can definitely understand the league's urgency to make some of this, have these things happen, so these really imperative events can take place. But it's been just still a disagreement in between the league and the players on some of these issues. They actually met virtually on Monday, over 50 players and then some league personnel, to have a second bargaining session this month, which I think is positive, because again, whenever you can at least have people talk directly, even if it is online, it helps to create dialogue and push things forward.
And I think kind of going back to an earlier point that you made, one of the most important pieces of this is that what the players are asking for isn't unrealistic. And I really like that quote that you mentioned too from Brianna Turner, that it shows our value and why they should keep fighting for what makes sense. Realistically, with this deadline being moved back to March 10th, I think most people, Stewie was kind of hinting at it to a degree, of saying that she hopes it would be done kind of towards the end of February, so that it could allow for enough time to have all these expansion drafts, the rookies, free agency, because now we're looking at this all being condensed within just a couple of weeks, and it's going to take multiple weeks for the agreement to just be formally ratified. So then when we're looking on top of having training camp that's going to be coming up, slated for April 19th, you said the draft that's happening on the 13th. The regular season is supposed to tip off May 8th. March is around the corner. It is very much here. Spring, the birds are out. They're chirping. The sun is out. Spring is turning the corner, which means that this needs to be cemented sooner than later. And I think everybody understands that it's a disservice to everyone if the WNBA does not play this season. But I also believe if the league cannot take all this information that is being presented right now and kind of tell the players what they are asking for is realistic, but maybe trying to find more even ground when it comes to it, the players are going to call that lockout. There's going to be a stoppage of work because I think some of this recent information that has been put out to the public, now everybody else knows what's going on. I think it all started back with Nafisa Collier making comments with Kathy Engelbert. Everybody is kind of aware of what's going on and what is at stake for them. And they can't back out now, just for the people that are looking up to them too. They can't back out and say, oh, well, we just want to play, so we're just going to allow the league to kind of have this one over on us. They're going to want to stay strong in what they are doing. So I think if this is not completed by March 10th, for sure this time, the players are really not going to play.
They already authorized that strike to happen if they decide that it needs to come to that. But recently, when I was at Unrivaled, I was on site, I talked to a couple of players. They all said that they understood that a season needs to happen, but they are prioritizing the stipulations around it, and that they need to stand on what they believe that they deserve and are owed. So that is just a common consensus. And the league, on the other hand, they understand the same urgency to have a season this year as well, because you don't want to lose all this momentum that the WNBA has built. But it's a matter of which side is going to bluff more and compromise less, essentially.
Sophia Jones, our WNBA insider, being in Miami at Unrivaled. She has all the inside scoop. But stay with us because truly UConn should probably get out of the Big East.
Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you a chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole experience. This year, taking a little bit of a look at the FanDuel Sportsbook and who is predicted to be in the NBA Finals. They think that the OKC Thunder is going to come out of the West, and then the Detroit Pistons are coming out of the East. As someone that's been to both of those cities, there's a lot of charm and a lot of stuff that you can do, and who doesn't want to watch high-stakes basketball? So visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Okay, so we've had this debate a little bit in terms of, honestly, we've seen some debate in the comments as well too of should UConn stay in the Big East? Should they move somewhere else? Our take between Sophia and I the other day was maybe they could move to the ACC in terms of location, having a little bit more competition. It might make the most sense. But when we're looking at UConn moving into the Big East, it wasn't that long ago. They've been in it about 5 years now. They moved back to the Big East July 1st of 2020. I was in school when that was happening. They were a 7-year absence before that. So they were readmitted to the league where they had spent 34 years prior to them leaving because they were in it from 1979 to 2013. And then they had moved to the which conference is this? The that American Athletic Conference. So they were in the AAC. And then they were moved, obviously, with the Big East members of Cincinnati used to be in it, Temple, South Florida, and then the new Big East kept DePaul, Georgetown, Marquette, Providence, Seton Hall, St. John's, Villanova, and added Butler, Creighton, and Xavier. So I have a significant amount of family that went to DePaul, played at DePaul. So they were there during the time of the Cincinnati, Temple, South Florida. My dad played basketball at DePaul. I remember him really hating having to go up against Cincinnati. There was big beef between them. So this was the OG Big East. Syracuse was in it at some point. This was the OG Big East. Then UConn had left, came back. But the bigger thing is UConn getting enough competition during the season? They obviously are still beating non-conference opponents who are ranked and getting the job done. That has not been without question. But it kind of gets to a point where do you want to have to keep blowing out every team by 50 points every game?
Yeah, I think that's why Geno Auriemma preaches the fact that their practices are so difficult because you're getting that competition in-house. It helps to mitigate the lack of it when you're playing in the league play. But UConn didn't skimp out on their non-conference schedule either. They played a number of Power 5 schools. Just looking at some of the opponents that they faced: Louisville, Florida State, Ohio State, Michigan, Utah, USC, Iowa, so Tennessee, Notre Dame. They did try to throw in these other opponents. And like I said, Geno says all the time that they attempt to make their practices really, really difficult. But to your point, they always just seem to cruise so much during Big East play. And whenever a game, I think when they win under 20, it's almost a little bit of a surprise. And it's interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see what they decide to do, because I think there are schools that have specific teams in different conferences, because I don't know if it's something that you put the whole school in a separate conference, but looking at the UConn women's basketball and the level of competition in the Big East compared to maybe an ACC, because again, it's a more regional. We do like a little regional conference over here. But yeah, it would just give them more competition, because right now, even looking at the NCAA net rankings, they're still number one. They still are 8-0 in quad one wins. Looking at some of the other teams, though, like UCLA right under them, they're 14-1 in quad one wins. And that is just where I think last year we saw that UConn in the tournament was a number 2 seed because they didn't have quite the resume to stack up against some of these other Power 4 schools.
And I think that's important to note too, because UCLA having this outright conference win, going undefeated in conference play, and when we've looked time after time within the top 25 poll, there's been 7 to 9 ranked Big Ten teams. So to go undefeated in conference like that can carry a little bit more weight. UConn can absolutely do that, but it's just when you're beating these Big East teams, it doesn't hold as much weight. At that point, you're just waiting to see who pops off on the team. If Sarah Strong went for 30, if AZ Fudd went for 30, if anybody off the bench went for 30, that's kind of what you're waiting on at that point. But if you're looking at the ACC, obviously regionally fantastic, but even just looking at the top 25 poll right now of the ACC teams that were in it, if we could imagine UConn in it as well. You have a Louisville, who's at number 10, who's in the ACC, Duke, who is sitting at number 12, and North Carolina, who's sitting at number 21. That's at least 3 ranked ACC opponents right there that you could be going up against, which gives you more of those quad one wins, gives you a little bit of a better seeding. Not that they overly need it going into March Madness in the tournament, but it makes for better basketball, in my opinion. People really want to see these fantastic UConn recruits and players go up against even better opponents. And you want to see it happen more consistently than just waiting for a couple of games to happen or having to wait till March to see it.
Exactly. And this isn't to say that the Big East can't get there themselves. It wasn't too long ago where certain teams like Creighton, Villanova, even Seton Hall, that they got into different postseason tournaments, whether that was the NCAA or the NIT. So the quality of basketball is still good in the Big East. UConn is just so far in ahead that you want there to be a little bit more parity. Also, it could be a recruiting tactic, though, when you look at some of these other schools and be like, hey, you have a chance to go up against UConn and really make a name for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So we will see what that looks like. I don't think anybody's necessarily going to take into account, what we have to say about it, but you never know. We can give a strong bid to say, hey, we think UConn should move to the ACC, but we will see. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to Locked On Women's Basketball. It is a pleasure as always. We will see you again tomorrow to keep you updated on all things women's basketball.